Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett. We just finished our other video, so she already got her nut. She gets to hang out today because everything's sort of back to normal. Um, but we are working on this application, and we basically been moving through it, and we're working on what's called CRUD: Create, Read, Update, Delete, and we are on the update part. And we've been working on this project for like 8.5 or very close to 9 months now. And so all we can do, I mean, so my other application, by the time I was here, I was making really cool, like last year. So in 2024, I built a very similar application, and I was building really cool animations at this point. But it got to the point where it just maintenance was so hard and so unreliable, and whenever I'd write code, things would just break and stuff like that. And basically, what it came to was that I had made a really bad decision early on, and I thought that I'd be able to sort of use Three.js objects as my truth. Um, but the Three.js is very, very optimized so that you can build individual one-off really cool visualizations uh, in 3D. It's not particularly well optimized so that you can build a scheme to build to use it as a tool to use cool operations. And so basically what happened is the way they do things is a bit inconsistent between even similar things. If you're using different uh, entities in Three.js, you will still get like it might be different. Like, so for example, one of my favorite examples is like the camera. If I remember correctly, the camera. So when if the camera is looking at something and that something moves, then if you want the camera to continue to look at it, you have to move the camera. So you might want an effect where like kind of like on Mario when he's moving, like Mario kind of the camera stays on Mario, but behind him everything's changing, right? So Mario kind of stays still, but you get the illusion that he's moving because of stuff behind him. Well, the camera's staying on Mario, but Three.js really isn't optimized for that. What it's and by optimized, I don't mean like efficiently work in the background. I mean like for coding purposes. Because what happens is as things move, the camera stays where it's at, and so for me, for coding, for me able to picture something, I actually want all the things to be static and then Mario to move, and then I want the camera to move along with Mario. That's how I want it to be. But that's not how Three.js is optimized. It's more optimized for Mario and the camera to stay together and then the background to move behind it. So, so, so anyways, but then they also have another concept where of a spotlight. So the spotlight is on something. Well, the spotlight tracks looks at something, so it would look at Mario and move with Mario. That's how the spotlight works. It's like it works the exact inverse of the camera. Um, and I would want I like the way the spotlight works. I think I prefer that implementation. So obviously the people at Three.js, they did a really good job in both cases depending on what you want, but they didn't stay consistent, which maybe it doesn't make sense to stay consistent. Um, but for me, I needed consistency, so I needed to add another layer for the truth so that I could make so that my code, because of the way things were slightly different as I tried to make things generic, it would just sort of the maintenance was just a nightmare. So basically, I redid that, and then also I did come across the use case where I really wanted to have multiple visualizations that were happening on the same time. It's the same visualization, but just maybe a different camera. So I want to look at the exact same thing in a different camera, but I want the same thing. So like the classic example in my mind is like an eclipse. Like you like to see maybe a view of the sun with the earth rotating and the moon rotating around it, or maybe just the earth with the moon rotating around it from the top. But then you also want to see it like from, if you were the earth and and the sun, and you're on earth, so you can see the eclipse with the little crown and everything around it, and then you can also at the same time see the thing moving. um, and so basically what I would have to do was I would have to create two different visualizations and then do a bunch of work in the in the video to edit it properly. And I would really rather it just be able to be all done in the browser. Um, so that is why so basically I ended up saying, okay, I'd rather just do a rewrite and rebuild it. And now this one is going so slow, and that's because it can manage multiple visualizations at one time. That's one of the reasons. There's a lot of reasons. And so this is where we manage two visualizations at one time. And that is the crux of what I think the problem is. I haven't actually looked at the code, but when I was thinking about this, I love to think about this. This is one of my favorite things to think about. Um, when I was thinking about this, and I typically will think about this stuff like right before I go to sleep at night, and then like when I wake up in the morning, I like to think about this. And I guess what that's doing is giving me a break from my like work, which is much more complicated than this. Um, but so when we go here, so one of the problems is or so when we initially built with the create part of it, we always knew that the box that this was going to sit in, the visualization was going to be 1 by 1 or 200 by 200, I think. And so it was always going to be the aspect ratio. So aspect ratio is the in the camera the width over the height of the scene that you're looking in, or of the portrait that you're looking in, or whatever. So if you don't have a consistent, if the space that this is in, because ThreeJS will draw it to the space, if the aspect ratio is not consistent between the space that you're drawing in and the what you set on the camera, you're going to end up with a distorted image, which is what we had. Now that, my friends, is what we call domain knowledge, right? Like that is not code, that is not anything else. It's understanding how cameras and everything work in ThreeJS, which is probably how things work like in the real world or whatever. Who knows? But anyways, I ended up, so when you go here, well, what you have is you have a wider, and a shorter. So we have an aspect ratio in this of 1.267 and change, right? Or 1.5267 and change. And so, so it changes. And so I think I was pretty smart, and I created like a signal that tells the system what the aspect ratio is. And there's my problem. The problem that I've run into at this point is that, what if I had two of these? So one thing I could imagine is wanting to work on two different, or see two different visualizations at one time side by side, right? So I have everything's identical except for the camera, right? So they're sharing everything except for the camera. Well, except for the camera and the renderer. So one would have the camera and a different camera and renderer than the other, and but they'd be looking at the same thing. So I could be looking at this from the top and from the front at the same time, right? So that would be really cool, but the way I coded it wouldn't be feasible because I only send one aspect ratio. I assume that if it's different, if we're looking at this, we're only looking at one thing, and that's a bad assumption. I think my guess is that's going to play out to be a bad assumption. So I need to make it to where, not when this update component, layout component, when it gets a visualization, when it gets the calculated ratio, aspect ratio to show right here, and this is what does it. See, and you notice there's only one in the signal, that it um, gets the correct one, and the correct one is the one for this ID. And if that's that is a very difficult thing to understand, is that we may have two things that are looking at this at the trying to show the aspect ratio, but it needs to know which one is its aspect ratio. But right now I only throw off one aspect ratio. So there's a lot of weird concepts that you kind of have to wrap your brain around to kind of understand what's going on here. But anyways, long and short of things, like if you can't quite picture all of that stuff, the long and short of things is that this needs to send what's called a dictionary or a lookup to instead of a primitive, which also comes with a lot of question marks or a lot of complexity, because when you interact with a object, not only is it different because it's an object, but the way JavaScript treats it and understands it is different because it's an object. JavaScript can easily note changes to primitives, but it cannot easily note changes to attributes within objects. So that means you have to kill the old object and bring the new one back. That means whatever is using that object that you kill needs to be confident that it can kill that object without, it can nullify, it can destroy that object without affecting anything else. So it has to be like a private object that only it uses directly. But when I send the value, I will be sending a reference to that object. So it gets weird, and you can end up with some really strange bugs. Now, all of that said, I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense, partially makes sense, whatever. It's like one of those things that, like, if you ever really want to be a good job, like if you just heard everything I said and that didn't make any sense to you, if it was very confusing, you're a human being. That's literally how 99.9999% of all human beings, they'd be like, I don't know what the hell he just said. B, you might want to save this video, or at least that little tirade, and maybe every month or something listen to that and see if it starts to make sense to you. Because the thing is as you develop as a developer, as a JavaScript developer, what I just said will start to make sense. And I don't know of any other language of that what I just said applies to. I don't think there is another language that what I just said is like that. I think this is exclusive to JavaScript. So if you went to college and they just said, oh, we're going to teach you Python so that you can learn to code, that concept just, I don't think exists in Python. So it's just like one of those things that like you're just going to have to figure out. But anyways, so the long and short of things, the thing that you should probably be able to understand is a dictionary. If you don't understand a dictionary, you really need to. So a dictionary is typically just an ID with a value. So I need to send, instead of sending a primitive, I need to send a dictionary and then use this ID here to determine what the aspect ratio for this is. Now, I know if you've been watching my videos, that 99% of the time, literally 99% of the time, when I run into an issue like this, I kick the can down the road and deal with it when the actual problem comes, because it's usually easier to fix a problem once once you actually have the problem in front of you. This is one exception to that. If you save these as, if we start saving this as a primitive and doing all this as a primitive, then anything that uses this sort of scheme will break when we turn it to an object. So it's just so much easier so it's easier because when we go to use things that need this, we'll have to account for the fact that it's an object. So we'll be forced to we will have the problem the first day that we build it, not whenever we finally get to where we want multiple things showing at the same time and they have their own aspect ratios and all that. They have special aspect ratios. Like, really, aspect ratios should be whatever we set it to, except in the condition that we're doing some sort of editing behavior. Then that's probably the only time that we would do that. So anyways, with all that said, I'm going to change this to a um, this signal to a to sending a dictionary. Um, and I guess the way what we can do is we can create a dictionary, and then no, so we need okay, so we need this. So this service, this publisher service, is the same publisher service for all of them. So we do kind of need this since it's going to be used. It's going to be hold in at some point. It will likely be holding multiple um, aspect ratios in it. Um, it needs to, I was hoping I could just make it in here and send it, but it actually needs to be like this. I actually will need to make it in there too, but I think it needs to be like private. And I think all private in this case does. So let's just AR dictionary equals, okay, and we really need to strongly type this. Again, this is one of those other things. And we want it to always be a number and a number that looks up a number, right? So for the moment, okay, so I want the type that I want to strongly type a dictionary that's a number and has a value of a number. And I don't really know exactly how to do that. If I did this like a couple of times a week, I'd probably remember. So I want to create a TS type that is for a dictionary that is a number for the, what is it? ID and a number for the value. Right, a dictionary. Okay, hopefully it gives me the better words. Oh, key, where the number is a key. That's what, so type. Okay, so I know. Okay, so what I did before, what I just did a second ago, I just went into my muscle memory, is what I'm trying to change in my coding style is I want to think of where it should be, go look for it, and then write the code, and then try it. And if it works, it works. But if it doesn't work, then detective why it doesn't work. So historically, my entire life, I've always detectived where it is. And so because I detective where it is, where I go and I just do investigation, I find where it is, like I'm not particularly aware of where it is architecturally or from an infrastructure perspective. And that is a big hole in my software. Like that is a big problem. That has led me to have some issues in working. So I'm trying to change the way it is. And since I've got damn near 50 years of experience with this sort of detective way, it's better if I don't really need to exercise that muscle in my brain. The exercise I need to do needs to be in the location. So that was such a clean, fast, efficient way to find out, go straight to what I needed to do, but that was not what I want to do for my personal growth. Okay, so for my personal growth, what I want to do, I'm going to do this. I know that these things are set in interfaces. I'm pretty sure I have an interfaces folder. I don't know everything that's in that interfaces folder, but let's go find that interfaces folder. Oh, there's our interfaces folder. That interfaces folder has two folders within it. One is called layout and one is called ST. I think ST is the one that I want. Let's look at layout. Okay, so this is our layout types and these are our reflow types. I don't even know. Oh yeah, that's for the drop down. So it's in our ST, which I think was totally reasonable. And then I don't think it's in our 3. I think it's going to be, so visualization I believe is, well, maybe it is in our 3. No. And so we have a general, triple, and then I guess this should go under visualization. See, that doesn't feel right either though. Maybe it's under app model, ST app models. Nope. Okay, so I don't really have a place for this, which I guess makes a lot of sense because I don't really see, but it's called ST. So maybe it should just sit right at the top. Or I guess maybe these are all just kind of sitting right at the top. Okay, I'm going to create a new folder called calculated. I'm going to count these. I have 5. So when I have 5 is when I start to think, oh, should I kind of group these up? But it's not that big of a deal. 5, 6. Once I get to 7, I start going, oh, okay, this is starting to get serious. Okay, so I'm going to, and I think I've always create these things in my packages. So let's go Control P, package. Yeah, so I create my interfaces. I'm guessing, yeah, see scene. Okay. So anytime in my packages, I close everything else. Now, this is going to be I for interface, and then calculated. Maybe it's probably too early, but maybe it makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up needing a dictionaries interface folder. Calculated. Aspect. This is so wrong. So wrong. Aspect ratio dict for dictionary. And it's NG. And then G for generate. I for interface. And then I believe they're called interfaces. And then ST. I wonder if I want to make that. I think I should influence the future of this application by creating a dictionaries folder, and then calculated AR dictionary dict. Now, the thing to think about on this is that since we already see that it's dictionaries, this dict is a bit redundant because it's in dictionaries. And so a lot of architects would just be like, I don't want to have the word dict here, and I don't want and dictionaries here. But the thing is when you're down in the weeds of this sort of code, this isn't obvious to you because you import this stuff up at the top. Now, I guess when you're declaring, well, I know, so with like a lot of services and a lot of things, you get to do that. You get to, what am I trying to say? With a lot of things, you get to when you pull it in, you get to define, you get to name it. So you could add it at that point. So that would work like for services and things like that. But it does not work for interfaces. So I know it's a duplication, dictionaries here in the dict here, but I think it's important. All right, so whenever I do something, the next step that I would do is I'll look up here. And I'll sort of visualize exactly what I expect to happen. So I expect there to be a new folder called dictionaries, and inside of it I expect there to be a new interface called calculated AR dictionary. Now what I'm wondering is AR, is that, should it be aspect ratio? Probably. I hate how long this is, but man, and not ration. All right, so now let's go here and we'll run our new script that we just created. npm run and paste I calculated aspect ratio dictionary. So like I'm making the conscious decision to isolate my dictionaries from everything else. So all my dictionaries, I'm hoping from here on out, all end up in this dictionaries thing, and then I think that's what I want to do. All right, and so we want to go in here and we have our, so this all worked out as we imagined it. I like this export calculated interface, and then they gave us the way this should work. So this ID number. So it's going to be weird because in all likelihood we're going to end up with a whole bunch of identical interfaces. So like the aspect ratio dictionary, the one that's not calculated, will probably be an ID and a number. The width dictionary, the height dictionary, all these dictionaries are all going to be the exact same thing. They're going to be absolute duplicates. But then some of them might end up with a string, and some of them might end up with another object in there and stuff like that. So the thing is you have to, it would be easy to say, oh, you know what, instead of naming this calculated aspect ratio dictionary, I'm going to say number dictionary and make that generic. But like the whole point of strongly typing is so that it makes it easier to understand. It's not two strongly typed things. It's to make it easier to understand what you're working on. So like number dictionary doesn't really help me at all with that. Now I do notice that I have this index.ts. So I can't ever remember what this is called. I always want to call it a roll-up, but I don't think it's called a roll-up. It's a barrel, which I don't know why it's called a barrel, but this is called a barrel file. Barrel files have a very interesting history, because there was a point in time where like if you didn't do barrel files, you were a fool. And then also there was a point in time where I was like, never ever do a barrel file. And then suddenly it became, if you want to do it, if you don't. So there are definitely some weird, you can get some weird circular references with these barrel files if you do certain things, and I don't really know what those things are. But okay, so it looks like I do like this. So the reason you do barrel files is so that you don't have to give the full path inside of your TypeScript to the file. You can just give a path to this, and this will give it to you. And I see these files get hundreds, maybe even thousands of lines long, and never really seen an issue with that. Maybe that is why they kind of went away from it. So I think it usually will help you in this situation. Dictionaries, and then slash, and that's the only one that we have. And then so what you'll get a lot of times too is like dictionaries will have a barrel file, and then you'll just pull in the dictionary sparrow file so that you don't end up with 10,000 lines in here. Um, so anyway, so now we have our aspect ratio dictionary. So now we'll circle back to our publisher. So I literally just very easily, it was so easy for me to think, oh, okay, this is in my publisher. And I think it's because of this sort of new mindset that I've taken where I'm thinking of things more in a relational mode instead of a investigative detective mode. So I think before when I was thinking more of a detective mode, I would have done a find for aspect ratio and try to figure out which one it is. So much easier to go, oh, I have a publisher and that's where I need to have this ratio. So, but I do, okay, and I still have it. So publisher service is now going to send a dictionary. So this is called calculated ratio. So I'm just going to copy this. I think I might have already had it in the clipboard, but get back and then colon, and then hopefully we get the little blue thing. So sometimes, this is weird, yeah, sometimes. So it gave me two choices. It says you can bring it in from your roll-up or you can bring it in from your directly. And I would rather bring it in from my roll-up. So it's an AR dictionary. And so basically, when I set this calculated aspect ratio, what I want to do is I want to get an ID and then I want to populate the dictionary. And I want to take this dictionary and I want to take whatever's in it and make a copy of it. And then I want to set it in my new copy. I want to make the update, and then I want to set this one, set it to my new one. So that should create a reference to a new object. And then I want to publish with this set command, the new one. Now, two weird things, side things that I'm just going to say that aren't particularly relevant to this effort, but like you really need to understand these. One is when I set it, it's actually going to send an actual reference to this actual thing. So that means that whatever gets it could actually change it. So it does. So even though this says private next to it, does not mean that this is private. That it's because I'm actually sending an actual reference to it. And then I guess that's the only thing. There was another important sort of the if it in this case we're sending a number and another number, so two primitives. The key is a number, the key is a primitive, and the value is a primitive. That is probably unusual. You typically will send a key and a dictionary or an object. That object, when you make your copy and you destroy the old one, you create the new one, those are still the same child objects, which is a bizarre concept. And it has a lot of implications that aren't really relevant to what we're doing right now. And if you cut your teeth like in React, I think all of this stuff will, if you really dug into React and really understood how that whole system works for creating, however they do the updating of objects and stuff like that, this shouldn't be too particularly confusing to you. But if you've never worked in that, this is probably insanely confusing to you. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a const and then a diction. I guess I can just call it dictionary because like we're in set calculate aspect ratio. Okay. Okay. So okay. So I have this code. I think it will. And in a method, I want copy of dictionary, and then overwrite the AR array, so JS knows that it changed. So this is something that happens all the time. I just don't remember. There's nothing particularly crazy about it. Yeah, so this is how you do that. There's other ways to do this. This, I think, has become like sort of the default way that you make this copy. I believe this is called a spread operator. And this makes a shallow copy. If you don't understand what that is, it's probably in your best interest. Yeah, see, so basically this is a pattern that people do all the time. So basically I want to take my dictionary. Okay, so the problem, okay, so now so we need to change this to be an ID. And it is the STID. And I'm pretty sure whatever calls this knows what the ID is. I hope. It's going to be a real pain in the butt if it doesn't. So at this point, we've initialized it as empty, nothing in there. And then so we want to take our dictionary and we want to update the STID, and we want it to be the aspect ratio. All right, so now we're sending it the dictionary, and we're saying, hey, look in the dictionary and find out what your aspect ratio is, because we know that all the listeners know. Like, the listeners can't really do anything with it unless they, like, maybe if a listener was just trying to print out all of the different aspect ratios, which I could see that, then it wouldn't need to know which specific one is. But we're sending all the aspect ratios. So if you're just trying to say what the aspect ratio of a single one is, you have to know what the ID is. And then so we are going to initialize by sending the AR dictionary. Now, I think we do this. This is something I'm not, like, when I first used to see this stuff, it used to really be confusing to me. This little, I think this is how you tell it what it's going to be sending. And see, now it's broken because it's like, hey, you didn't send of type, you didn't send that type. Okay, so now we want to send our dictionary. And then we want to update. So basically, like, how deeply you understand this code, you know, who knows? It's going to be, it's a lot. So basically, step one, let's go ahead and do this. Set the dictionary, or make a new shallow copy. To modify the dictionary. So this is a little bit different than a lot of other things in JavaScript because like you don't like let's say it doesn't exist, it's not a problem because you're just this will either update the existing one or add a new one. It will do both. That's not always how things are in JavaScript, but in this specific in the with this with when you're working with dictionaries, that's how that works. Um, I like to call this publish. I don't know why. I find it to be a little easier. Publish the new dictionary, and then save the new dictionary. All right, and I guess this is going to be our little PR. We're going to ask ChatGPT to criticize this. How does this look? I guess this is good practice for me because I have a hard time with this. Oh, well. Creating a shallow, wow. Oh, cleanup suggestions. You can explicitly type dictionary for clarity. Ah, smart. So that was a good one. Got me. You got me. That was a good one. Remove the redundant return. Okay. But if you plan, okay, so I'm curious what it's going to respond. Add the return, so unit testing will be easier. See how it responds. I have no idea how it's going to respond. Especially when you said assert method without a check internal is a nice light way to do that. Another common pattern I've seen in projects return the new object itself instead of just true. That's actually a good thing. So that's actually a really good idea. So we want to return. That's actually another great idea. Really not something I would have been able to think of, and not something I would have thought of if I had made it void, because it would have been like, oh yeah, you did a void. But that will be actually make for a better unit test. All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, that's good. I think that's a solid thing. So now things should break, right? We should have shit broken all over the place because this guy, I'm hoping that I'm crossing my fingers that this guy, where are you? Control button here, that this guy knows the ID. Please know the ID. Yep, st renderer ID. Wait, yeah. So the st renderer ID gets passed in, and so I don't know. I'm a bit confused on if an st renderer ID is the same thing, but I do want to keep that consistent. Now, I have two choices here. I can right click on this and go to where it's set up, or I can try to imagine to myself, where would this code be? And it would be in my publisher. So my publisher is right there. So I'm like kind of, I guess what I'm doing is teaching myself to think of the different rooms in this application as opposed to just blindly going to the next place. So architecturally, I'm sitting at the st publish right now. So I want to call that not st ID, renderer ID. I think the renderer ID and the st ID are the same thing, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'm just get this little back. I think in my head where this this is getting called from, I can't even remember. Where am I? ST renderer service. So that's setting that. And ST renderer ID. And I just want to make sure that I spelled that correctly. Spelling has been one of my biggest weaknesses literally over my entire lifetime. Okay, so yeah, I'm actually glad I changed that, because I don't want it, because the renderer in ThreeJS will also have an ID that ThreeJS created, and it isn't, we never ever use it, but that doesn't mean we'll never ever use it. So I'm glad I specified that. All right, so we're gonna have other probably issues on the in the template side. What does this say? Okay, so over here we're saying that, and what I can do, and I think it makes sense, is ID. I don't know why. I don't know why it has a problem with that. Oh, this dot ID. I think that's gonna be fine. I think. Now the thing is it's possible that the ID doesn't exist. So I guess what I want to do is say let AR, which I think is fine to do that, equals this. And then there may be a better way to do this, but, and I might ask. I'll probably ask ChatGPT for, like, that's like sort of the thing. Like ChatGPT is good at a lot of things, but if there's one thing it's really, really good at, is sort of like, if there's 100 different ways to do something, giving you sort of the accepted best way. Okay, so what do you think of this? Do you think of... So my biggest question though is am I using like $1 million worth of technology right now, and if I become dependent on this, am I like not going to be, am I just going to be priced out, and I'm just becoming like, I don't know. Few thoughts. Right now you have that. Optional logging, debugging. Yeah, so I think even if it's 0, I don't want it. Okay, so, oh, shorthand. Oh, so I don't really like this. And the reason I don't like this is because I think it's difficult to set debuggers in this kind of code. I think the code is pretty cool. And I do think that like this sort of stuff is incredibly powerful inside of templates. But, okay, so, okay, so I don't want to, I also want to update if it is 0. Okay, so is this const? Oh yeah. That was right. Because I was thinking, when I first wrote this out, I was sort of thinking ahead, and I was thinking, oh, I want to set AR to 0, but then I realized, oh, it's already set to 0. Okay, so that's cool. So that is actually, I'm really happy with that. And I wish people who read PRs were as polite and friendly and nice as people, and people who review PRs were as nice and polite as people who read or who as ChatGPT. Um, Now, my current situation, like usually 99 times out of 100, my boss is the person who reads and responds to PRs, and he is one of the kindest people you'll ever meet, and he's very, very nice in PRs, and very thoughtful, and 99 times like his changes are usually really good and really solid. And if they aren't, he like he actually loves it if they aren't, because he loves to learn new things. So, I'm not talking about my current situation, but so is this working? Oh, it looks like we still have a problem. What is the problem? And see, I still want to figure this out. Like, I don't want to have this timeout if at all possible. I have like trauma around timeouts because most developers and PR reviewers, especially people who like doing PRs, hate that. Okay, so we have a problem. Okay, so this seems old. Did I not say? Oh, I didn't save. All right. Let's see if it actually works now. I don't know if it'll work, because I didn't code this the way I normally code it. I coded this with a lot more like imagining rooms and imagining where things are and then making changes where things are. I did not kind of go through all the little ins and outs and little side things and all that to figure it out. So it worked. Woo, 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 woo. So I'm wondering if we still need this. I don't even know if we still need this. We haven't tried it without this, so. It's kind of crazy though, because we were getting something different before. It was like all white up there. Now it's, yeah, so this doesn't, you have to do a set timeout to get the finalization to bind. And I'm guessing, do we have an error in the console log? So we have, I think these console logs are a bit distracting. It is kind of weird though. So all this thing really does is set after init complete to true. So we don't even use this thing. I'm just going to comment that out. Go to a different one. I want to find that other console log. Cancel. All right, so it is broken again. It's not broken like in a really, really bad way. Well, I guess it is broken in a really, really bad way. It's broken in a way that it doesn't work at all. That's pretty bad. And it looks like, I do call it. Oh. No, all I do is declare it. I don't call it. And there's no reason to do a bind anymore. Okay, so yeah, it broke. Okay, so we'll go back. It does start working though. That's pretty interesting. So it's like eventually it does start, it throws a couple of errors and then it starts working. So I'm guessing even if we turned this off, let's just reload. Yeah, see, it works, but then I bet you if we look in here, what we'll do is we'll see some consoles. And it's this change after the value, and it's that -1 and 3. And it's over here. So basically it's just the um, all it is that, and I think there's a call. There's a very simple call. Um, seeing this error. Let me just give this really vague to change after it's already been checked. Boom, error. Oh, I see. This would probably be a pretty cool one. Queue microtask, because that would probably make the sort of people. So this is what I'm doing. This will probably make the people. Oh, this is ng zone run outside of Angular. Oh, so it's saying if I did that in the template directly instead of setting it, that I would likely. After next render version 2. Okay, I think what version of Angular am I using? I think I'm in 20. But I keep saying that and then I find out that I'm in like 18 or 19. Okay. Okay, so I am using Angular 20. 20. So after next render. This is crazy. This is totally new for me. So inside of my effect, apparently I can say after next render. I do like that. I think that is cool. This is literally I've heard them talk about it in some of the Angular people talk about this in some of the um, their streams, but I didn't quite understand what they were talking about, and I think that this makes a lot of sense. And I don't, but mine is a little bit different. But let's just try it. I'm kind of excited about this. I kind of also do like that last thing is, and to put it straight into the template and sort of let Angular figure that out. But I do want to use this just to try it. Like if nothing else, I just want to try it out. It is freaking out. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work out. I think it might also have to do with the fact that, like it was like in the middle, like it's like a refresh. It's a weird state. Okay, let's go back to here because things are really jacked up. The other thing you do have to like they are the people who build this stuff are humans. So okay, so that is working, but I did not have the inspector up. So let's see, console. So not like everything doesn't always work when the first time they kind of roll it out, or maybe I'm on some weird edge case, but that did not work at all. Um, but I did try it, and I definitely feel a little more comfortable with it. Um, so I don't like that. I do want to sort of ponder the idea of let's get it back to where it was working. Okay. It's kind of wild that you can add the viz here, then you go over here and you can see it, then you can go here and then you can update. And it's even the same viz. Okay, so my old fix is not working. I thought we had this working, right? I mean, this was working. Okay, that's weird. I know we had this working. We'll add some time and see what happens. That's such a bummer. I mean, I know we had that working. We were not having this problem. Maybe I didn't have the debugger up. So let's say I make it 3 seconds, right? And we wait for 3 seconds before it calls. I'll just go to 4200. Let's just skip all of that stuff. Add one of these guys. Update. That is crazy. All right. If I go back any farther, oh well, see now I'm, okay, my back is messed up. So we get a problem as soon as we try to draw this out in here. But so they're claiming that, and it can't be the ID. What is it? This is so frustrating. Inspect console 1. So it is actually talking about the actual, that this changed from a 1 to something else when it wasn't expecting it. So they were claiming that Angular was claiming that I could do this instead. And that the problem would go away. I don't know. I just genuinely don't know. It's kind of weird because it doesn't look like Angular even noticed that there was a change. Okay, so we did not, I don't think we had an issue. Yeah, we never had an issue when we moved this whole thing into into the template. And I don't even know that there's any reason to not have this. Like, I don't really care. Um, Maybe I will in the future. And actually, I would like to see like what sort of bad side effects come from doing this. But what if I make this 0? Again, that's just weird to me that like it's not. I get, yeah, I don't really understand what's going on. But I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna reload. Well, basically, we want the same what we expect. Okay, now this is really being weird. Okay, I think we have completely screwed up Angular at the moment. So we'll restart and this video. I was hoping to make this video really quick. So there's two numbers down there. One of them always says 000, which always makes me think that I haven't started the video yet, and that I've been talking into this for like the last hour and 6 minutes and didn't record anything. Come on. All right. Missed it up. Okay, so basically what we expect to see is it come up very quickly. Came up, no issues at all. So I'm curious what happens now if I get rid of this. And basically all we'll be doing is calling this. Basically all we're doing is setting that flag instantly, updated flag, instead of waiting. Let's see if that works. And man, this really screwed things up last time. I don't know why. Like, it doesn't surprise me that things get broken at this point, right? Because it's like there's nothing there. And I don't know exactly what I want to do with it, but I'm going to hit reload, inspect, get this console going again. Nope, it broke. So we still need to have that, and it's probably a different thing. It's probably not the, oh, it didn't. We need to play it through to see what it is, so we can see what the message is. So it went from -1 to 3. So that is a different value that it's upset about. Now, when I hit Control Z last time and I went back to my original code, it just stayed broken. All right. And it's probably because of this after complete true. Do we even need that? I'm curious. I'm curious about that. Like, do we even need to check to see if this is still the case? Do we need this? Because maybe we don't even need that anymore. And you may wonder, like, why I spend so much time on this. And it's just like, this is always a very challenging issue, and it never ever gets easier with time. It always gets harder with time. So like, this is one of those ones that just, it's like a red light, stop everything, figure this out. Now, there have been times where I can't figure it out. Like, no matter what I do, it's broken. and with set timeouts, no matter what, it's still broken. And the only time I've ever run into that where like I just cannot figure out how to fix it is when is in the case where I've done an upgrade. So there have been times where I've done an upgrade, and no matter what I do, that bug just keeps showing up, and that error message just keeps showing up, and I don't know, just cannot configure, like, you know, cannot even begin to figure out why that bug is showing up or how to stop it. Okay. Well, we're in a stable place. I think it's time to kind of call it quits for today's video because it's pretty long again. I do watch all these videos on YouTube because I want to kind of experience it the same way that anybody who watches it experiences. But, and I think this is a good thing. This is not a criticism of YouTube at all. But they don't show me ads. So I don't, like, I can't experience what's happening to you in ads. And I don't participate in ads. So I can't, so I can't experience it exactly how you do. And I can't control. Like, I have absolutely no control of how ads show up. Like, so if you're getting, like I know that there are some, every once in a while I'll watch some people that I enjoy their content, but like I cannot watch them because an ad comes up every 2 seconds, which could very well be like if you want, you could imagine that's just like YouTube's sneaky way of preventing you from watching somebody, you know, because they're just like, they just make it impossible to watch somebody because you just keep getting ad after ad after ad. Like, that's possible. I think it's highly unlikely, but it is possible. I do know that there's one person that I enjoy their content, but they get so many ads that you can't, it's just unwatchable to me. And when they and then I watch them on other platforms, and other platforms that are completely like a whole different, like everything's different about it, and I still get tons of ads. And so at first I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt that it was just them, but then the guy was just like, I love ads and I'm going to add as many ads as I can everywhere I can. And I was like, okay, yeah, so I'm done with you. I'm not going to watch you anymore. But anyways, I feel like this is done. Is this done? This step, basically, I really, okay, layer after layer after layer. Obviously, update is not done because you can't update anything. I did go down into a rabbit hole to get publish working. I think that's done. So I think that was the lowest rabbit hole I got into. The next rabbit hole up was to surface the code to the UI, which that's done. Now that one was a little weird because like I'm not like this, all this code that I wrote for my app update layout to show this stuff on there. Wait, am I back to this? No, it has the service. All of this stuff is like, man, now it makes me wonder if, okay, let's go back. See, since this was breaking, doing all that because of the ID, it could be that I can actually, so I would rather show, I'd rather show it from here, just because, like, if I need to make some changes and stuff, like in the future to this or something, if I need to add some logic around this, then it'll be a little easier if I have it back there. But at the same time, I don't want to, like, I don't want that bug. I don't want that expression change thing. Trying to beat it to the... I do not know why it's not. Always makes me nervous that it's not, that it didn't actually bring my new code in. No, okay, so no, we need that. Don't quite understand this. This is an interesting clue to kind of understanding how things work. The fact that, like, when they are doing timeouts and stuff so that this works on their side. But anyways, this code here, all of this code that's in here is going to be replaced by a component. And the component is going to be getting its own information. And so we'll have another round at trying to get all of this stuff to be a little bit better. Like this code here, like this, all of this code is not even going to be here. We aren't even going to have an aspect ratio, and after init complete, we won't need any of that stuff because we're just going to show the edit component and hopefully handle any of those sorts of weirdnesses in the component at that lower level, instead of trying to handle that component. And it will be actually quite interesting to see if all of these problems just go away if we're dealing with components that live at the same sort of layer in the hierarchy. Right now what's happening is a lot of, like, this component at the this visualization component is firing off a lot of stuff with information that I want at a higher level in the hierarchy of components. So maybe that's what's causing some weird timing issues. I don't know. That will be interesting to say. But basically, I just wanted to force myself to build out a scheme that has that. So anyways, yeah, so tomorrow I guess it'll be time to start to actually have so I did ask myself to do this, set up 3 published that will publish actual values used. So what I'm thinking, like, okay, so what I'm thinking is that 3, if you come into 3, you see that it has a service. There's a 3 service, and it has a camera. See, so this logic happens in the camera service, and this is the actual aspect ratio. The actual, not the calculated, the actual aspect ratio. And maybe it makes sense to create another publisher in here that publishes actual aspect ratio. So this, what it should be, this is what we calculated it and sent it to 3, and then this is what 3 did. Because it does feel like at some point I will probably want to know what's actually in 3. So yeah, I think that makes sense. So I guess that's what we'll do tomorrow, is we'll set up a publisher in this 3 service. So very similar to the ST publisher, but it'll be a 3 publisher service, and it will send the actual, and it'll probably have a dictionary and all that stuff the exact same way. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now the question is then also, do I want, so like if you look at the camera itself, the camera itself, it has an aspect ratio. Like, it seems like I also want a publisher that has that aspect ratio as well. So it seems like, and that seems like an expansion of this. So ST publisher service, it has an AR dictionary. Oh, I screwed that up. So I'm actually glad we just went through this calculated AR dictionary. Now, none of this should affect anything outside of this service. So that's good. so for the publisher, we're setting the calculated aspect ratio. So that's just for the concept of publishing. Then we'll also set the um, configured aspect ratio. And yeah, I guess this will be called configured. And that will be the one that is like that the user sets up. Like if the user wants a specific uh, AR, that will happen in here. But then the thing is, and so and that leads to some other issues that are some other interesting issues, because like here, they might want the width and height to be one, but they want the AR to be different. But then when you're going to be working, actually editing it, um, you know, like right now, I'm just fixing it to whatever it is. And I guess that is what you'd want, because when you're editing it, you're like, okay, so what would it look like perfectly? Okay, now I'm trying to distort it for whatever reason. And so you kind of need to know what it would, so if you're distorting something, you need to know what it would look like undistorted. So I guess it still makes sense to me not to like distort it the same amount or whatever, try to figure out what the distortion percentage is over there and match it or something like that. So um, anyways, who knows if that's what I want. Maybe I would actually want, like in the editor, we might want to be able to look at it that way. But I think that'll do it for today. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.